Thank you. So glad to be back here again. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the next generation citizen experience. But first, before I do it, I will tell you a story. What if, imagine this, you're in another country, not in your home country, you're in another country, you're visiting with your partner, and you're expecting a child soon. It's not about to be born just yet, very soon. So you're exploring around, looking at all the sightseeings and visiting the touristy spots, visiting the pubs, having a good latte somewhere. But something goes wrong. And you realize that, hey, that baby is knocking on the door already. Now you're in a different country. So you don't really know where to go. You don't really know whom to contact. And it's a very, very emotional state for you. But you want this problem to be solved because your baby's life is at stake. So what will you do? Being in a wholly different country. You'll pick up your phone, and your phone asks, "What can I help you with?" And you're saying, "I'm about to have a kid. My wife has gone into labor. I need help." So your phone tells you everything is going to be all right. I've got this. Don't worry. Give me a few seconds. So what will happen is that a few seconds later, it will show you that, hey, go there. Go to this address. A car with a number of X and Y is going to pick you up, and they're going to take you to the hospital. And again, everything is going to be all right. You're going to be fathers soon. Bigger problems are way longer ahead. So the car will come. Car will pick you up. And you're going to sit there and you're going to be driven to the hospital. Your phone has already told you that the hospital already knows that you're coming. They already have the basic information that is necessary in order for the whole journey to be very smooth for you. It doesn't matter what car it is. You just know that, okay, the plate number is correct. You don't know if it's Uber. You don't know it's some taxi service. You don't know if it's a government car. It doesn't matter for you at that point. It doesn't really matter for that service, right? So the car takes you to the hospital. You're able to pay for it. Your phone already knows your payment data, right? Or maybe you will get a notification. Hey, we know that this is an emergency. The government will subsidize this cost. It's going to be perfectly non-issue for you because you have much bigger problems at hand. So you're going to be taken to the hospital and everything will go smoothly, almost as smoothly as it would back home. And then, of course, this is not the tragic story. You're going to be a father or a mother and everything is going to be fine. This photo has a cat on it because my significant other said that my presentations need to have cats on them. So it took me a while to find a cute picture like this. But last but not least, once everything has gone properly and your child has been born and it has in the background in e-services, it has gotten a personal code and it has been registered, your phone contacts you again, says, "Hey, congratulations, you're a parent now. But we noticed that your child doesn't have a name yet. So here are a few good options." They are good options because these are options that not a lot of kid names are registered of those names yet, which means that once your kid goes to school, they will be unique, but at the same time, these names sound really good. Now, if you look at this whole story, who here would raise a hand and say that you would expect something different? Yes, we have a few hands here. But this is like the core of the issue. These services, a lot of things, like in this journey, a lot of things happened in the background to make something like this happen. And we are not there yet. No country yet is. But this is like sort of the solution where you would expect this to go in one way or another, regardless of the government, regardless of the country you're visiting, in home or abroad. Because this is the way how people communicate with one another. Like if I don't have a computer, I would expect this same kind of service. I would expect to just tell someone I have a problem someone to solve this for me so that the journey would be as comfortable as possible. I don't want to visit websites. I don't want to visit the websites that's saying that, if I have a child in this country, I need to do this, fill all those forms, and then I'm going to redirect it to another website, and then I have to download the PDF to fill it and send it on email to certain other address. This is not what I expect. I expect services to be offered to me through regular communication, just like I would talking to a friend. And this is sort of the end goal. Something like this. We don't know exactly how it's going to work, but it's going to be something like this. So I am CTO for the government of Estonia. I'm an engineer by heart. I absolutely love writing code. I would be in the red room at the moment, in the Kubernetes room, and learning about that even more. But I'm here because I want to share you some details with you. My favorite things to tell people of Canada is that my last name is Maple, so I feel extremely at home, which is, I really like this. And you're also very friendly people, more friendly than Estonians are, which is, again, feeling like home. So going back to this, going back into specifics a little bit, how can we actually get to those stories? This is a really abstract level of looking at how government services are being provided, both today in Estonia as well as in any other government, if you can think about it like that. So there are three main layers. The top one is communication layer. It has a keyword, single digital gateway. This is something that is used in Europe primarily because this is expected of all the European countries for the government services to provide it through a single digital gateway, which usually means a website. Then there's a secondary layer, which is the government services, all the services provided by your government to you, to all the citizens, of all the ministry services, all the other office services that are being provided. And in the bottom, there's the technology architecture, which is, again, different in different countries. And before I'm jumping into all these specifics, just to give you the state of things in Estonia today. And you can easily relate to this because you have very similar solutions in your own countries today. And first of all, is government service silos. I haven't seen yet a government that doesn't have siloed services from the government side. All the ministries have their own services or their own information systems, all the offices, so on and so forth. It's throughout all the government services. You have multiple silos, and these silos for the citizen are very complex. In Estonia, when going back to the story, in Estonia, when you're having a baby, you have to do up to 10 different tasks in order for the whole process to happen. Fill 10 different forms or have dealings with 10 different ministries or offices to get stuff done. In some countries, it's even more. In some countries, it's less. Good for them. But it's still too much if it's more than one, because this is not what you actually would expect, right? So we have a lot of these silos. Secondly, we have, this is in Estonia, our single digital gateway is eesti.ee, which is sort of like our country name our domain name. Very simple for all the Estonians, very difficult to tell to some international people. You have to visit the site eesti.ee. What? But, that's fine. But this is our single digital gateway. So this is the number one place where a person will go if they want information about the government service, if they want to change their address, if they want to see their job status or banking data or their tax information. This is the number one gateway to get this. All the information is not there, but it can be connected through there. This is what we use, and every government has something like this. And then in the bottom, we have a lot of monolithic architecture. There's a lot of talk that Estonia has a lot of stuff distributed. This is true. But all the distributed stuff is monolithic in its own right. And again, this is how we are very similar to other countries, because a lot of other countries have similar situations. They have your information and databases that are really monolithic, hard to change, hard to transform. When something happens, when a new law is applied, a huge amount of work has to be reworked, refactored, and changed. And it's very expensive. And the other key there is what we call is X-Road. X-Road is something that Estonia uses for data interoperability. X-Road is also the reason why Estonia is low ranked in Europe in terms of open data. Now things have changed. In a year, we have jumped up more than 50%. This is really great. because we've taken this as an initiative. But X-Road is the reason why we are low ranked, because our government shares data over secure X-Road rather than through other custom means, which means our data isn't classically open between governments. So there's always a trace what data is being used and how. And we use X-Road for this. So our monolithic pieces are connected through X-Road. And this is one of the cornerstones of how our digitalization has been such a success story. Because while there's a huge amount of data that government holds, control over that data is decentralized. And all the processes can happen in a smaller section, but data can still be shared over X-Road. But this is still not good enough to make that original story that I explained happen. So what are we actually doing about it? First of all, we are actually dealing with proactive services or enabling proactive services. Up to last year, it wasn't possible for government to actually be proactive in Estonia, which meant that if something happens, other government silos couldn't start processes automatically just because something happened, such as a kid being born. All of those 10 processes couldn't start by itself without your direct input and your direct consent. So we made a change to that. So one of the first things that we're actually focusing on is proactive services. This is a very small snippet of the public address that was made, is that public services are going to be made more user-friendly, proactive, seamless, and automatic life event services. So it's about life events, such as birth, such as death, such as changing a job, such as graduating. Various very key events that happen in your life that for you should be a singular transaction with the government rather than multiple. If you change an address where you live, you shouldn't have to change it in multiple different databases. You should give your government consent to change it in all the relevant databases by themselves. So this got actually government approval in late December last year. And it has been the work of a lot of government agents for a really long time, because this was such a regulation mess to actually weed through. When Estonia's journey has been said in 30 years, it's been really great how we managed to get there. Part of the reason why it was really quick was that in the 1991, once we regained our independence, it was a regulation Wild West. There weren't really no laws. We grandfathered something from the Soviet, we grandfathered something over from the early republic, but there weren't anything tying us down. Now we live in a different era, where we have all the laws set, all the expectations set, everything is already written in. So in order to make proactive services like this happen, it's not just a snap of a finger. We actually have to create the new sandbox, new environment for this to actually work. And this has been really successful. We now have first life events that are already working seamlessly. So once government knows that something has happened, processes already start without expecting you to have the contact point dozens of times throughout that process. So this is a good start, but this is still not the only thing that is required for making that original story happen. Secondly, this is strongly inspired by the fact of Conway's law and domain-driven design. Two keywords. I hope that you will take Conway's law with you. If you look at your government, if you're in a private sector and you are involved running a service in like an organization of any kind of size, then Conway's law applies to you. Do not piss off Conway's law. You can't. What Conway's law says is that if I ask, for example, this group of people here to design the perfect information system for making sure that e-service of a birth is perfect, then they're going to design a different system than this group of people here. And both will feel that their system is perfect. What it means is that the system design will end up being that in a way that it completely maps the communication structure and expectations of all the agents and participants involved. Which means that they're going to make stuff that is most convenient, most seamless for them. And you're going to make stuff that is most convenient and seamless to you. And you're both right. And this is what Conway's law says, which means that any kind of information system, any kind of service that you're building is going to be perfect at the time you finish it, as long as it's quick enough. But if your organization changes, if we take half the people from here and make them sit there because there are more empty seats, then what happens is that their system isn't going to be perfect anymore. Neither is theirs. Because the people that influence this system are now going to be there. which means that your systems and your services should be designed in a way that they're flexible for change. Because other than that, it's not actually going to work. And domain-driven design is one of the ways how to do it. It's a whole talk in its own right. But these two keywords, I really would suggest you pick up with you today. I will repeat them as the last thing I say as well. And it's also important to focus on the fact that citizen experience isn't the same as official experience or a government agent's experience. They're two different things. If we design e-services in a way that we expect that the experience for both sides is the same, then we're already making a mistake. They should be treated differently. A citizen doesn't necessarily have to know what government agencies are being involved to provide them their service. They're interested in their own communication layer, how they are talking with the government. But how government deals with its stuff is entirely a separate issue, and they should be treated separately. But if you're looking at the service for the citizen, you cannot forget the citizen. It's very easy to often to do this. Thankfully, today we have had multiple talks, not only here, but in other stages as well, that are focusing on the fact that you have to take this end user's opinion into account, especially if you're a government, because it's very easy to forget who's actually paying for all these services. And it's also like, I'm just going to mention this a little bit, is that it's very important for me is that we end up in a situation where the citizen experience is cross-border. The example I provided very early on, the story I told, is cross-border story. It isn't a story in a single country's borders. It's shared. Data sharing happens between governments. We need to create environments to make this happen. We are exploring this in a very early stages with our neighboring countries to see if we're able to make sure that we can share data between governments without creating a situation where government information systems are tied together strictly, because no one wants this. You want still to have, because of Conway's law, flexibility to do and provide your services your own way. So once we make sure that government is able to proactively offer you the services, what are the other things that are missing? Because these things are still not good enough. So one of the things that we are exploring is digital assistant, which we call bureaucrat. It's difficult to explain the word. It's a combination of bureaucracy and krait is essentially a mythological being that is akin to artificial intelligence from Estonian mythology. So this is a weird name that we have given to it. Talking about bureaucrat a little bit, what does it mean? In May of this year, actually, we publicized our Estonian Ai Strategy. So this is, again, a lot of countries are doing this at the moment. If you look at the public sector AI strategy in Google, you find multiple governments that have been doing this in the last few years. We among them, we know that artificial intelligence is incredibly important, and we know that it's the #1 thing that will help us automate the routines of our everyday lives, so that we can actually save time to do stuff that is actually important. I mean, if you could, most of you wouldn't be sitting here. You would have AI that just catches up everything that's relevant to you, and you would already be working on it 30 minutes from now. But it hasn't been automated yet, so we are having events like this. One of the things in our AI strategy says is something like this. It's in asterisk because it's my lousy translation. Supporting the use and implementation of AI components and enabling interoperability for the creation of a digital assistant. And digital assistant is the key word here. Our bureaucrat idea that we're exploring at the moment and finding ways how to do is sort of what I explained in the beginning. It's your phone that is actually assisting you to deal with the government, to sort of provide you all the services that you actually need. So if you tell your phone that you're about to have a baby, your government's digital assistant can actually aid you on that journey. It consists of multiple things. One of the key things, and this is why Canada is hell of a lucky, is that your phones today understand both English and French. No phones in anyone's pockets here understand Estonian. We need to fix that, because otherwise our original story is never going to work in Estonia. So we are actually having very early talks with all of those companies, including many others in our own private sector, to sort of find ways how we can actually get Estonian as a language understood. Because without this, the whole concept is not going to work. And we do not want to create government operating system or our own digital app, because governments should not build apps. This is not the point. The point is to offer services in the environment that the citizen actually expects. So a few other things. With this kind of digital assistant, we might be able to actually do through GDPR and through my data. Does anyone here not know what GDPR means? While it's a fascinating invention by European Union, it has been talked about worldwide, but there were a few hands. GDPR is Global Data Protection Regulation, which means it's about your data being yours. As an engineer, I can tell you that GDPR is not possible today with technology. If you read GDPR, it's not possible to do with technology to make sure that something can be GDPR compliant 100%. It's simply impossible. But with digital assistants and making sure that your digital assistant gives control over your data to you, close to you, to your phone or your digital wallets of any kind, then it might be possible. We might be able to get there at least much better than we are able to today. And one of the very important things is obviously that government has also a role there to make sure that if your data is entirely yours, if I give you your diplomas, then you feel, oh yes, good, I have my diplomas on my phone. But we have to make sure that if suddenly something happens with your phone and your diplomas get lost, then you are still able to be recognized as an educated human being. This is a very critical problem, and a lot of these things will have to be addressed to make sure this happen. But it would be possible. Digital assistant is able to get you much, much closer to this kind of real ownership of your own data, rather than just bureaucratic one. Today, you are like in Europe, according to GDPR, you are owner of your own data, but your data is everywhere else. And this is not exactly my data as is. So when digital assistant is one of the ways, there are still a few things that have to happen for this kind of story to work. And one of them is essentially the next generation technology. And there are a few key things here. One of them is autonomous microservice architecture. It's a really technical term. They're talking about it a lot more in the Red Room right now. But technically what it means is that instead of huge monolithic silos, your government services consist of smaller pods, smaller domains that talk to one another. Sort of like you here. You can talk to one another with specific experience from your own side, your own domain knowledge, right? Just like in your own organizations or in your own governments, you fill a specific role. An organization isn't a monolith, because if you, for example, have a vacation or you attend a conference like this one here, your organization still works. No government here, if you're from a government or if you're from an organization, your government and organization still works today. Just because you're here, nothing fails. In monoliths, they can often fail. And this is one of the key things to make this happen, to have more microservice-oriented architecture, which means smaller sections that governments can share. So if multiple ministries share the same function, you can actually share the same technology. With monoliths, you can't do it. But with smart, domain-driven, autonomous microservices, that's possible. But this is, again, a whole talk in its own right. Secondly, we are also working on the next generation X-Road, because X-Road has been such a fundamental part of our government's success. And we are now exploring, and have actually been exploring, more wide adoption, not just in Estonia, but also in other countries, such as Finland is also using X-Road, for example. And we have other countries are also exploring similar technology stacks. In order to make X-Road better, there are a few things that we're also doing. So a few key things here to make this happen. First of all is that in X-Road has been traditionally really bad with REST. REST is a tech term. Most of you here may not know, or it doesn't even matter, but the idea there is that REST is something that is very easy to adopt if you want to connect different information systems with one another. This is a next generation thing. We want X-Road to have a wide adoption of it. Our current version already supports REST, but not in a way that we actually want. Second, we want to have more seamless onboarding and better cloud support. Again, cloud has been around, like in these halls, many have been talking about cloud. This is important for us as well, to make X-Road more cloud ready and more cloud enabled. And we have made huge strides to make this happen. The next version of X-Road will be completely cloud compatible as well. Then backwards compatibility. When you're talking about governments, you don't have the privilege of just breaking stuff and then expecting, they will make a change eventually. With government, you cannot do this. Estonia is doing internet-based voting, has been for years. In our last election, 44% of our votes cast were internet-based. Next time it will be over 50%. But we still have to be backwards compatible. Physical votes still have to be counted because governments do not have the privilege of doing any other way. Then, in terms of X-Road, planned beta for next year and planned use in live in 2021, I'm sure we'll be able to talk about it a lot more at that point, possibly talking about also about cross-border solutions, sharing data over X-Road with other countries. It will be possible by that point without any issues. Then also wider adoption of autonomous microservices and reuse, which I mentioned earlier. We are strongly investing into microservice-oriented architecture and exploring options there so that, again, we don't have to reinvent the wheels over and over again. And obviously, event-driven GovTech and X-Room concept. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what X-Room concept means. Traditionally, X-Road, data sharing, has been done like this. So you can imagine this because I'm sure your governments and organizations have similar integrations. It's a very abstract way of looking at it. You have A that shares data with B. In terms of X-Road, they also have a little box right near them. This is called security servers. So this makes sure that if your one instance of your information system accesses data from a whole other ministry or office, then the request will be made over secure channel. It's validated, it's authenticated, and everything is fine because we're talking about sensitive data here, such as health data or your private data. We have to make sure that if another government requests data, it's going to be very secure as much as possible. The difference there is, in terms of X-Room, is that suddenly we don't have A connecting directly with B. We have them apart, but they are communicating in a room, such as this room here. This is very different from the other way of looking at things. This is not something that Estonia is inventing. There are other keywords here, such as event-driven architecture, if you want to take things from this talk. Event-driven architecture, some of the things that Spotify and Netflix have done is based on event-driven architecture, because there's a huge key benefit there. Because suddenly you can have multiple participants in the same room. If a new person comes into this room and is going to hear some of the things that I'm going to say in my last slide, then they're able to also pick up this data and do something with it. Or if someone leaves, and thankfully no one has left, apparently it's interesting enough, then it also doesn't mean that the whole room falls down. While in the top example, if B leaves, then A is suddenly dumbfounded and doesn't know what to do. So event-driven architecture is something to really look forward to, because this is the way how to make the original story work. So a few important takeaways. I know that in every talk, at most you take 2 or 3 things. At most. I'm saying hundreds of sentences, but you're going to take 2 or 3 things. I accept this. I've experienced enough. This is perfectly fine. So what are the 3 things? Do not forget the story. Don't forget the journey, how you actually expect the service to work. Because if you just imagine like the way you're doing stuff today, and trying to extrapolate from there, you're going to be stuck in a box. Imagine in the way you actually expect the service to happen, and then develop services, and then find a way how to get those services working like that. Because everything else would be a compromise. You do not want to compromise. Second thing, Conway's Law. Don't forget this. They're doing a perfect service. They are also doing a perfect service. You have to build a service that allows this to become that if the people from this group move to this group. If you don't develop flexibility, then you're going to end up with someone saying that your system's a legacy far too soon. And last thing, focus on decoupling and domain reuse of your services. If someone has developed a really great service for some kind of business process, find a way how you can actually use it in another organization rather than have it the monolithic way. So, thank you. One more thing. Tomorrow at lunch in the black room, I would gladly like to open up an open discussion regarding like the keynotes that I actually said here. So if you're interested, come tomorrow, lunch, black room, and we're able to discuss a little bit more. Or just find me on the floors. But tomorrow lunch, don't forget. Thank you.